Don't forget that your skin is your largest organ, and the sun can be your skin's worst enemy. Dermatologist-recommended Neutrogena products offer the ultimate protection for your skin. From makeup remover wipes to Hydro Boost Water Gel Facial Moisturizer, BJ's has your entire lineup of Neutrogena skincare products. And now through December 3rd, save $4 on any Neutrogena product at BJ's. Love your skin back and save now through December 3rd, only at BJ's.
We all know a guy who only occasionally shaves for big occasions, and it's because that occasional shave really hurts. It's the time of year for big occasions, and yet there he is, suffering with that cheap drugstore razor. Let's help him out. Henson Shaving's line of razors, built with aerospace precision, deliver a smooth shave your dad, brother, and even son can enjoy, eventually. With replacement blades just 10 cents each, you'll buy it once, and they'll use it for life. How's that for the perfect gift? Celebrate with 100 free blades on your first purchase, and no subscription headaches. HensonShaving.com/holiday.
Hello, and welcome to the No Fruit Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Maurice.
And this is Kafi.
We thank you for tuning in today. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Well, hello. Welcome back. Hope that everyone is enjoying their day. We have a lot to talk about, Maurice.
Mm-hmm.
A lot has been going on since this last podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So we've completed our election and we have some results.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody doesn't like the results.
No, not at all.
They don't like change.
No, they don't.
So we have a new president-elect.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been a little bit of pushback from that.
A little bit? That's an understatement.
Just a little bit. A little bit of pushback. So there's been some questioning of ballots. There's been some uncertainty on what the real deal is. So they are giving a little bit of pushback in reference to how the ballots were counted and whether or not those mail-in ballots were actually good and valid.
Right.
So there's been a little pushback about this change and whether or not, do you think the change is going to happen?
Isn't that a song?
Do you think the change is going to happen?
Yeah. I can't.
No, that's not the song.
I can't think
There's a song. There's a song about change.
Right. I can't remember what song.
But don't worry about it. It'll come to you later.
Yeah, I guess so.
Maybe.
Do I think it's going to happen? It's going to happen. A change is going to come.
Yeah, there you go. That's a song.
No. There was another song that I was thinking about.
Not that song.
No,
but yes, a change is going to come is a song. So keep on going. Yes.
But the question becomes when and how.
Mm-hmm.
Because unfortunately, the powers that be today are not necessarily welcoming the change.
And that's key.
So, and with that being said, there are others, so we're talking about from the executive branch of the government, current government, right? That does not necessarily accepting this change.
Mm-hmm.
But quite interesting enough, we have people that cast a ballot or a vote, right? So in this election, we have both the Electoral College for votes, and then we have the popular vote. So unfortunately, once again, the powers that be, being the Electoral College, if you play around with those, right, those numbers, then
we can have a situation like 2000.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So once again, it's the powers that be. It's not the little peons or the people that sit in the last pew of the church
mm-hmm.
that means anything. So it almost makes you think that all those persons that have done all this partying and everything else over the last couple of days, the last week or so, hey, a change is coming, and then Saturday we get some results that, hey, the change has happened, but the change hasn't happened yet. Mm-hmm. We have to wait until the gentleman takes the oath and there's a true transfer of position.
Mm-hmm.
And that transfer of position is being fought against tooth and nail, even though they keep getting turned down almost every turn. But there are some changes that he's making at this time that really, like, he does have 2 months for him to still be in office.
Correct.
And he still has 2 months to make a bunch of changes where he could figure it out. Mm-hmm. He's going to push enough buttons to figure it out that, hey, I'm not leaving, right? And he believes that he won. He believes he doesn't have to change. So, in saying all that, you know, when you think about that, how's that very similar to the church?
Right.
How is that similar to the church? You know, are the church members always ready for change? But more importantly, are the leaders ready for change?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know,
and I think it differs, you know, from denomination to denomination. Some leaders are in place for 20, 30, 40 plus years in a pastoral role or in some church leadership role.
Right.
But then there are other denominations where that shifts and that changes quite frequently. Mm-hmm. Sometimes as often as we change presidents, you get a new pastor or some other type of new leadership,
right? Because
it's appointed by a bishop or some other governing board. And those individuals within that congregation have to first accept what's going on.
Right.
Accept the change. They don't have to like it.
Right.
But they have to accept it. And I think that's where we are right now as a country, is that everyone hasn't accepted that this is the way that it works.
Right.
And that this is the change that's come. Some of it because, hey, this system has holes, and they're trying to find all of the holes. And I find it kind of strange. Like, I was talking to someone earlier this week, and they were kind of saying, you know, they didn't agree with the way that things were going right now. And I said, well, the gentleman that's in office has always found holes.
Right.
He's always found a way to get around, a way to get over. Why would you think anything different?
Right.
With this position?
Right.
He found a way to get around from paying taxes. He found a way to get around from paying people who worked hard. He found a way of getting around of paying debt. So why wouldn't you think that he would challenge the system with all of the political backing and with all the backing that he could have from lawyers and other legal things, because he's done it before.
Right.
You know, he has clearly done it before, not only with the things that we know, but I'm probably thinking that a whole lot more the way that his track record shows and his history shows and the things that he has said shows, and people have receipts, like they have proof that he's said and done these things, but he's not sitting in jail.
Right.
So he's found a way to get around things and get over things and get, you know, the results that the normal Joe Schmo couldn't get.
Right.
So I'm standing here saying, yeah, go ahead, turn over every stone. You know, challenge everything that you can challenge, so that when we do have to walk away, that you can't walk away like, oh, well, it's because, you know, you guys didn't look at this and you didn't look at that. No, I say challenge every state if you have to.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, God gets all the glory. And like you said, the majority of people voted. You know, the most votes cast in a long, long time. And so that speaks volumes on how much people wanted their voice heard and that they wanted change or whatever. That's toting the lines in some states. It's very, very close. But I think first we have to understand that what the system is.
Right.
And that there is a system for change.
Right.
So you can't just say, hey, no, I don't want to leave.
Right.
You know, like you said, turn it over to the church. What happens if the people come and say, hey, we no longer want you to be pastor? He can't or she can't just say, fold their arms and say, I'm not going. You know, and it works a whole lot different with church because the church people can say, well, God said, you know, you don't need to be here anymore. And the pastor can come back and say, well, God said I should be here.
Right.
You know what I mean? And you're this and you're that. So, yeah, that's just where things are that I'm standing on, what I think. How about you?
I mean, I really do believe, like I said earlier, a few moments ago, it's going to come. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of how and when, right?
Right.
And whether it's going to be by force or not, whether it's going to be peaceful or not. See, I think some people don't understand. There's a place for dignity and grace, and not being self-serving, things like that, right? Selfish, and reality. I think sometimes when you're not in a position of power, perceived power, quote unquote, then once you come back down to earth with all the regular people, right? When you come back down to earth with all the regular people, now you're touchable, right? Because certain positions give you a place of being untouchable.
Right.
And there's a lot of fear that once he comes back to earth, he'll be touched. So I think as long as he can kind of stay in that place, can't be touched, right? So when you
or even if while he's, you know, like you said, he has these few months to get his act together. He has these few months to pull in and make a team that's going to protect him once change happens.
Right.
You know, he could very well understand and see it. But again, for all of his donors, he has to answer to them. So in that, is some of the things that he has to do. He has to change his mindset, right? He has to change from being, as I stated, self-servant to more of a, I am a servant, right? I humbly served you, you know, with dignity and grace and everything else I could have done to make things better, right? Right.
And then comes that, you know, so, you know, then whatever stuff you get from, you know, after that, right? So I think what I'm getting at is that when I listen to some of these pastors and just some of their mindsets right now where they don't want to change, they can't change, they're not trying to let go of the position that they hold.
Well, I think you said a key word, servant.
Right.
So, you know, if anyone in that leadership role sees themselves of something other than a servant, it makes it hard to have change, to say, hey, I've been a servant, I've served my role, I've done my duty, and now it's time to move on. But if they think that, hey, I'm in this position and you need to serve me, you need to pick me up in the car, you need to make sure I have a room, you know, and that I have all blue M&Ms in a jar, you know, then that's a different role.
Right.
You know, if you feel as though that, as you said, I'm untouchable, no one can get close to me as a pastor or as a leader,
right,
as a minister, or even as the leader of the free world,
right,
you know, not saying physically touch, but just being able to have contact with that person, there's something going on.
Right.
So there's question in the leadership from the beginning. There's questions there. So, you know, what kind of leader are you?
Right.
because there's several types of leadership. You know, we have this democracy, but then there's also, you know, dictatorial leaders, you know, so dictatorships. So there's just a lot of other types. So it depends on what kind of leadership you have. And I think within the church, we have more of a democratic process within the church. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not, as the king says, being the pastor, and, mm-hmm. you know, he has the last and final say, mm-hmm. and that it can't be challenged or can't be voted upon, or that he or she does not take in account other people and their ideas and ideals. Right. So I think that's some of our challenge right now, mm-hmm. especially within the church. Mm-hmm. What kind of leaders are they? Right. And then, as you said, how do they handle change? Mm-hmm. Because a lot of people don't like change. Right. They don't like it, whether it's the money kind. Right. Because I know I remember many a day in high school, people would throw away pennies. I'm like, what are you throwing away the money for? Because I don't like brownies. Mm-hmm. That's what they used to say. Right. You know, even in church, they would say, you know, when we pass this plate around, we don't want to hear anything rattling. Right. Just put paper money in. Mm-hmm. You know, I understand for those who had to count it. Mm-hmm. They didn't like that part. So, because I've had to count sometimes, and it's just like, oh my gosh, you know, so it's a lot easier to count. And then also, bills. I think, even with you, I'm sorry, this is going to be off topic, but I think there are some people that would come and just dump all their change. Mm-hmm. You know, like you said, as I'm just to get rid of it. Well, as I'm saying, thinking about, as I'm an usher, you know, I remember this one lady who put a whole roll of change. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I could see her putting the roll in the plate. Mm-hmm. You know, so you can't say that she didn't give. Right. But at least she had it in a roll. At least she had it in a roll. You get what I mean? But mm-hmm. then there was this gentleman who we really do believe that he lived on the street. You know, but his offering was it was always a bunch of change. So, you know, I remember the officers talking about, you know, we need to stop accepting money from him. And then there were some that were saying, no, we need to, you know, continue to get the money. Right. But the one officer that had mentioned it was because he would walk around, like I said, we thought he lived on the street. Okay. Because he had, you know, some type of, some fragrance that, you know, would linger, mm-hmm. you know. So, you know, I think that's what they was kind of alluding to. Like, mm-hmm. hey, you know, he can just kind of stay in the back and not do that. Right. But that's a whole nother topic. But just maybe when you talked about the change in the plate, mm-hmm. it just made me think about that. But I want to say that as I'm sitting here thinking about the change just from one office to another, mm-hmm. the change from one pastor to another, even just a change in just church officers overall, right. even in the change with the Senate and things like that. You were making me think about just all the positions that I've ever held. So many. As I told someone earlier this week, like, hey, I've been in every position in the church, just about, mm-hmm. except for any organization that had that was predominantly women, where it was only for women, and I have yet to be a pastor. Have I been on ministerial staff all the way down to an usher and to just a regular person? I have been. Mm-hmm. So it's not too much when it really comes down to whatever I've held in my life. There's not too much I don't know. Right. So when it comes to change, I know how much change I've had to adapt to mm-hmm. from, you know, one person to another, because every president, mm-hmm. you know, has their own mindset, their own goals, things like that. And sometimes even with an organization within a church, depending on the pastor at that time and what his vision is for the church at that time. Right. So sometimes you'll change your even just your church anniversary theme. You know, mm-hmm. you've had this for the last 10 years. And you're like, all right, we're going to change it up this year. First we was in reclamation of members, and now we're into the revolution, and we're going to fight the power. You know, so, yes. you know, it just depends on. It depends. You know, like you said, every pastor comes in with their own, right. You know, thoughts and ideas. Right. I remember just wearing a shirt and skirt in a
Right.
choir.
Right.
And then we had a change in the pastor.
Right.
And he said choirs need to be in robes.
Right.
Y'all need to go raise some money
Mm-hmm.
and get some robes.
Right.
So, then became breakfast sales and spaghetti sales and bake sales and stay-at-home tea sales and all
Right.
that kind of stuff so that we could raise some money to get robes.
Right.
And then, so with all of that, yes, with leadership, they have different ideas and they have different agendas.
Mm-hmm.
They have different focuses.
Right.
And that's all well,
Right.
because as long as it all addresses the people, because the people have different focuses and,
Right.
and different needs.
Right.
And we can't meet all of them as a leader. So as leaders change, then the needs shift and change with that administration.
Right.
One of the other things I want to, point out real quick is that you were talking a little bit about the shift of change. And so it brought me to like inauguration day or pastoral installment day. I don't know what it's called.
Yes.
Losing my thoughts there. Or even when, like you said, as an officer, when you have an anniversary, everyone gets read back in
Right.
as a member of the lay group or a member of
Right.
this choir, and then they have a charge,
Right.
an oath almost,
Right.
So it's very interesting to see the parallels between the church and politics here
Right.
in the United States, and how, I don't know which one came first, probably church, but
Right.
but I think politics kind of rubbed off on it a little bit as well, and I'm sure the church rubbed off on politics. That's
Right,
probably why
right.
they, use the Bible and say their oath and obligation there. But
Right.
there's just so many different things that are similar.
Mm-hmm.
I can remember going to installation service, and everyone came and laid hands on the new pastor and prayed for that person. And it's almost like an inauguration where everybody kind of comes, all past presidents and dignitaries come
Right.
and
Right.
kind of give their their blessing.
Right.
So it just how similar those things are. It's kind of interesting.
Right.
Kind of interesting.
Right. So one of the things that you were talking about as far as change, and we talked about the government, and we talked a little bit about the church, but one of the things that you have brought up to me, Kafa, with this topic was just some of the changes in the Bible.
In the Bible, yes.
Like you said, from Saul to David. So what was that change like to go from one to the other?
Right.
In reality,
And knowing the history of Saul.
Right.
And what he was all about.
Right.
And then to switch over to David, so people weren't always happy with that change either.
Right.
Also think about Moses
Mm-hmm.
and how they followed him for years.
Umpteen years.
Years. Like, he is our leader. He's taking
Right.
us to the promised land because God told him.
Right.
Then he came, he was like, yo, I'm not going to make it.
Right.
And they were like, what?
Right.
You brought us all this way. We done walked and traveled from here to there.
Right.
And now you're telling you ain't going?
Right.
And then he was like, yeah, it's good. But my man right here, Josh
Right.
got you. It was like that young buck.
Right.
You know what I mean? So the same thing happens within the church.
Right.
You have a pastor who's been there for 40 years.
Right.
And people have grown with them. Oh, he married me and he baptized every one of my kids. And he came, there when my mother was dying. And they have all this history.
Right.
And then that person gets to the point and was like, well, my journey is over.
Right. Right.
I've taken you as far as I can.
And I think sometimes, even thinking about that, sometimes people don't understand when it is their time, or they say it is my time, but I want to see this particular project completed, and sometimes that project might not end for another 3 years or so.
Right.
And we've seen that a lot of times in different churches and whatnot.
Right.
So, so are we really ready for change? You're talking about keep the change. I mean, that's a topic for the day. But some people don't, some people want to keep it.
Right.
Some people want to, say, hey, we have this change coming. let's keep on this path of change.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like you said, there's some that don't like change, because when it comes to change, there's a change of mindset, there's a change of scenery, and there's a change of what's another word? I'm sorry, I'm losing my mind today. It's just a whole lot going on today. But I think
you're changing.
I'm changing like the leaves outside.
You sure are.
Sorry,
you are changing
colors. But I think people just don't like this change.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's too much going on. I mean, people have had to change their lifestyle due to
this pandemic,
whatever's going on with that.
Mm-hmm.
People have had to change with how they've lived with dealing with racism or classism or anything like that, sexism.
Don't forget that your skin is your largest organ, and the sun can be your skin's worst enemy. Dermatologist recommended Neutrogena products offer the ultimate protection for your skin. From makeup remover wipes to Hydro Boost Water Gel Facial Moisturizer, BJ's has your entire lineup of Neutrogena skincare products. And now through December 3rd, save $4 on any Neutrogena product at BJ's. Love your skin back and save now through December 3rd, only at BJ's.
We all know a guy who only occasionally shaves for big occasions, and it's because that occasional shave really hurts. It's the time of year for big occasions, and yet there he is, suffering with that cheap drugstore razor. Let's help him out. Henson Shaving's line of razors, built with aerospace precision, deliver a smooth shave your dad, brother, and even son can enjoy, eventually. With replacement blades just 10 cents each, you'll buy it once, and they'll use it for life. How's that for the perfect gift? Celebrate with 100 free blades on your first purchase, and no subscription headaches. HensonShaving.com/holiday.
You know, there's even a change and a shift in that. So right now, we are just going through a lot. And how much change can you bear at once? You know, a lot of people have, problem with one change, let alone 18 at the same time.
Right.
You know, you no longer can just go to your corner store and guarantee you can get a roll of toilet paper and know that, hey, all right, your delivery is not today. I can go next Tuesday, and I know I can go get it. And then you realize next Tuesday comes, the following Tuesday comes, 3 months has gone by, and they still don't have toilet paper. You know, you want to go and, get sugar and flour and things like that. You know, me being in the store earlier this week, I'm looking at some of the shelves like,
they're
wow,
empty.
Shelves are really still empty.
Empty, yeah.
And to me, I'm gonna be honest with you, it's empty with some of the craziest things though. Like, it's like, how you be empty of flour?
Yes.
People are baking that much.
They baking eggs, yes. Christmas time is coming and Thanksgiving. People are starting to try out their recipes.
I guess so, but that was just
because before they could go to grandmoms and they could go to aunties.
I guess you're right.
And eat their good food.
I guess you're right.
But now they got to figure that out themselves. So they've called auntie and they've called grandmom and say, how am I supposed to make that again? And they say, go get this and go get that. So they trying it all out right now.
Yeah, no, I guess you're right. You're right.
So they're trying it all out right now.
That's a good point. That's a good point. So,
but I agree. People don't like change.
Right.
As I said before, they don't like loose change. And I'm wondering, when I was thinking about our topic today, to keep the change. A lot of times when we pay for things, we say keep the change as a tip. You know what I mean? So
yep.
That's kind of how I'm kind of playing on words. I have some puns going on here with keep the change. The other thing that came to mind was several months ago. I haven't seen it much, but I've seen a few signs where they say we have a change shortage.
Yes.
And they wanted you to use debit cards and credit cards.
Right.
One, I think, I'm a conspiracy person, so probably to track your spending because the government gave you some money. They want to know how you're spending it.
Right.
So I figured they could track it if you could swipe your card.
Right.
Versus, using cash. But then I don't have any proof of that. So there was a change shortage. So therefore, they couldn't give us change. And I'm thinking that's what's happening right now. The government doesn't want to give us change.
That's a good point. Well, is it the government or just a few select people?
It's a few select people.
because even those persons that a few months ago
Mm-hmm.
I thought would not accept the change, some of them have,
Right.
And they've changed in their verbiage,
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily the total message, but just the way they're approaching things. They're acknowledging, no, change is here.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I mean, it's something because they had to get reelected.
right.
You know what I mean? So there was some change in their verbiage and their attitude that the messaging that they were putting out,
Right.
so they can get reelected. Some of them, the language changed because of all of the unrest that was going on, and they needed to appeal to that population.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So those are some things. But I just think it was kind of, interesting how we had a change shortage and they didn't want to accept things, or the change shortage was there and they were asking for change. Bring your change to us. Can you give us some change?
Right.
And now here we are and we have a change, and it's, some are accepting of the change and some are not accepting of the change.
Right.
So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah. And I think for those that are not accepting of the change, see, this is where the liberal conservative mindset, I think, comes from. Because conservatively, you don't want to change anything, really.
Mm-hmm.
Liberal, you might be a little more willing to, right? And I think, in just my opinion, I think the liberal conservative lines are not necessarily Democrat and Republican.
No.
It's really old versus young. That's the way I feel. Because the older that I get, the more conservative I become. And speaking with one of my clients earlier this week, she even mentioned just how conservative she is.
Mm-hmm.
But she mentioned how she needed a change for her business.
Mm.
So she could not stay within the party, per se, because she needed things to change. So I think people are willing to do change when it suits them.
Right.
You get,
Mm-hmm. We all want to win.
Right.
So, yeah.
I mean, yeah, because we don't want to be losers.
Right.
He's calling everybody losers. We don't want to be a loser.
Yes.
We want to be
what
on that
they call
list.
fair weather fans.
Right.
But goes with the wind. So,
so I think that's the key right now of change.
mm-hmm.
Changing your mindset, changing your lifestyle, changing your expectations, changing your horizons, your scenery. There's a lot of change that needs to happen overall in order for us to become better people.
Right.
And I know we're harping on the government, but understand that sometimes the word government is a cover word for church.
Mm-hmm.
So I want you to understand sometimes those words are interchangeable. Mm-hmm. And some of you might fight against me on this or whatever, and that's fine. But
bring it on.
But those right.
I got his back, y'all. Watch out.
But there are some people that, that are closet. Yeah, Maurice, you're right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You will, and that's fine. What I think what will happen is that you'll understand that change is not always negative.
Mm-hmm.
A change of scenery is not always negative. Now, if you're forced out, sometimes that change of scenery is not welcomed. But once you get out there, you're like, oh, wow, it's not really as bad as I thought.
Right.
Because I'm going to tell you right now, just my own personal testimony, I'm being stretched. Right now as we're talking right now, and my scenery, my mindset is really changing a lot. And, as we're talking about on this No Fruit podcast, I really believe that I'm literally planting a bunch of seeds, that I've never planted before. And there are some that have already blossomed in this time of harvest.
Amen.
There's a lot growing. So, so don't fight against it, but so much, because you really don't know what's going to out of that change. You don't know what's going to blossom.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who scream, "Oh yeah, I'm single and I'm proud." Well, in that change, you might become married. You never know.
Right. Right.
You talk about, hey, I don't have a church home. Well, in that change of mindset, you might turn around and have a church home. You may start that ministry, and that ministry does not mean a church. Okay. It may mean that you start a community choir.
Right.
That ministry could be helping out the kids somewhere in the neighborhood. That change could be a little bit of anything. So it just depends on what you're open to and what God is laying on your heart. Now is the time, in all honesty, in all this chaos, is to be the change.
To be the change agent.
Right.
To be the one that starts it or waters that change.
Right.
So as Maurice said, like, what seed are you planting right now?
Right.
Or what seed have you planted?
Right.
And what are the next things you need to do so that you can have change? Because you don't want it to continue to be a seed.
Right.
So that seed begins to grow. That means it changed.
Right.
The dynamic of it, the makeup of the seed has changed. So that's what we want.
Just like a caterpillar.
Just like a caterpillar, it changes.
Right.
But we're No Fruit Podcast, so we're talking about fruit.
I know. But we just talk about change. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
But sometimes a caterpillar will be on a piece of fruit.
It does. It
will be on a tree.
It'll be on a tree. It'll be on a piece of fruit, leaf, whatever.
Right.
So again, we want you all to plant seeds and expect change.
Right.
Expect change and look for it. And we want you to keep the change.
Right.
Keep, again, this is our little tip for you, because we're saying keep the change. So keep what's going on right now in 2020 in reference to this change in political power. Keep that change. As much as they're trying to fight against it and prove that there were some issues, but keep that change.
And even though they're finding some here and there,
right?
They're, like in one place, they said it was only 595. 595 was not going to make a difference out of 45,000.
Right.
And the judge kind of just like, well, where's your proof? Where is your proof? And that's not being provided. So, and even if they can find proof that only 500, or let's round it up, 600 people, that's enough that is not enough to do a recount.
Right. To say that there is truly an issue that was systemic enough to make a recount.
Right.
So, and I guess it goes back to, whose report will you believe? Where is your faith? Do we have, and I think that's the other part that somebody said, well, everyone around the world is laughing at us being a country because we don't even have faith in our own democracy. We don't have faith in our own system.
Well, they mentioned, something else I read, where they're talking about the one person that's going around speaking to these other countries this coming week, and he's saying that, hey, his eye, or the America's eye, is on these foreign countries and their democracy and what they're doing, being transparent. But at the same time, he's saying, no, we need to keep our current president in office, right? And debunk this whole voting process. So it's things like that where we look like we are all over the place as a country. That's what makes it look weird.
Right.
So that's why we are a laughing stock right now.
Yeah.
Even though we've had plenty of political leaders across the globe to say, almost welcome America back, to some degree. And that's just something where, is that where we are? Are we really in that place? But I do believe that this last president, he did plant a seed, though. I think he planted a seed. I think he planted the seed of, that the establishment does need to be shaken up a little bit.
Right.
I don't think that, let's not lose his original message, which was change. Hey, give me a chance, right? You never know how it's going to go. And we didn't.
He was the epitome of change. He was someone that was not part of the politics. He was not a part of any armed services. So he was totally a change.
Right.
He was a change. And now people have voted and they want another change. They don't want that right now.
Right.
Or any longer. So, yeah, there's a lot there.
Right.
There's a lot there. But I think my advice to those who are going through change, and I know that in some of our friends who are leaders in the church, they have a meeting coming up that may shake up some change.
Right.
There's a few meetings that happen throughout the year where pastors get moved around in certain denominations. So we have some friends in a denomination, and they are questioning where they'll be pretty soon. So some of the things that they have to remember is that one, change is inevitable for the type of position that they have. Like, that's just what it is. It just happens. Right. The bishop comes in and he makes changes, or she makes changes. So one of the key things real quick is that you can't pretend that there is no change. You can't continue to walk around like blinders on, like, hey, change didn't really happen. I'm still here. You know, you have to understand that there is change, and you have to start now, not planning for next annual day, but now plan for the new leadership. What's that transition going to be?
And I hear you on that, but I'm gonna play the other side. Go ahead.
I mean, I'm just saying, a lot of leaders and pastors don't do that. They don't think about, well, who's coming in? Let me get things in line for them. It's more so like, hey, I'm just gonna play it every Sunday and every Wednesday as normal, and then when I'm time, it's time to go, I'll go.
And I think that there are some that are preparing for the change and understand change is needed or coming. But again, when they change, what's left out there for them?
Mm-hmm.
You get what I mean?
But I think, that's my next point, is the failure to communicate.
Mm-hmm.
So they, leadership, whoever's creating that change, has to communicate well with those who are part of the change.
Right.
And those who are leaders have to, share with the congregation that, hey, there's going to be a change, but that, make them feel comfortable with it. Communication is the way that you make people feel comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
If you and I lived in this house and we didn't communicate, how comfortable would that be?
It wouldn't be comfortable.
Exactly. So, you can't be in church, which is an extension of your family, and you not communicate what's going on, allowing, in some ways, your own vulnerability to come out.
Mm-hmm.
Or being a way to reassure people that it's going to be all right. God's got it.
And that's the one thing people don't want to do. They don't want to show that they're vulnerable.
Not at all.
They don't want to show their weakness. And overall, you can't,
you can't fault them for it.
Yeah. Because most people don't want to be hurt. That they'll be hurt if they show their, how vulnerable they are. Mm-hmm. And I have quite a few family members, as you well know, that fight that all the time. And even just the simplest things, such as "I love you," is a sense of failure,
right?
Of strength.
And I think that shows a lot in our current administration,
right?
I think getting sick and showing vulnerability is a sign of weakness,
right?
You know what I mean? But if we're all Christians and we look at what Jesus did and how Jesus felt, then it shouldn't be that much of an issue.
Right.
It shouldn't be that much of an issue. I think, little Bible verse you always learn when you young is what?
Which one?
Jesus wept.
Oh, yeah. Right.
You know what I mean? He ain't cry. He wept.
Right.
So that's not a little, no, the man, wept, boo-hooed, so that's something. Not only as a man, but just, if we are Christians and we're following Christ, then, you have to be vulnerable sometimes.
Right, right.
So one other tip I would give, I guess, people who are shifting and changing leadership roles and would be to don't ignore the need that other people need to vent. Okay. And, again, it goes back to that vulnerability side.
Right.
And I can only go from just me being a supervisor, that when we've had some change, I had to allow my staff time to kind of vent, because if not, they start gossiping. So between them venting and having good communication, it kind of smoothed things out. So those are some things is our current leadership venting? I would say no, because before social media was hot, but the last few days it's been a little silent.
Yeah, I mean, he still says a few things here and there, but
it's not venting.
It's not as it used to be,
right?
And
neither is his family. I mean, before we would hear from his son, his daughter, like everybody else, and it's kind of radio silent recently.
Right. I mean, but sometimes there's quiet before the storm.
It is. It is. So, with all that, we have to pray for our leaders.
Right.
They have a whole lot to deal with and handle. So we're praying for our leaders, not only of this free country and across the world, but we're praying for our church leaders.
Right.
I'm praying for you.
Why? I'm joking.
Because you need prayer. So as you say, within the business, you're doing a lot of things and you're leading a lot of organizations and businesses within Chisholm Group. So, yes, you need to be held up in prayer as well. So
I mean, I know that you're praying for me.
Yes.
I mean, behind every strong black man is a strong black woman, or beside, or maybe even in the front. It all depends on the day.
Hey, they're close by. They're close by. That's what matters.
And that's the one thing that I acknowledge, that, I'm not, first and foremost, God is the head. And then second, I know that, the wife is the second head. So I know that she's right behind me, right beside me, and right in front of me. Like I said, it depends on the day. Mm-hmm. And I acknowledge that and I receive that. And, from a male perspective, you have to understand that even in being a great leader, sometimes you have to follow.
Yes. And again, it goes back to your servant,
right.
What you're saying. Sometimes you have to realize that you're in a servant role as a leader.
Right.
That you are serving the population, the community, the people.
Right.
Yeah. So, again, with bowed heads, we pray for our leaders.
Very much so.
And we thank them for what they do.
Right.
And we pray that God continues to bless them and to show them favor.
Right.
And to encourage them to do the right thing.
Right.
The right thing. Right. So, Pastor Maurice, what are your final words?
Pastor Maurice.
Yes, come on.
We love you and good night.
Okay. We love you.
I'm sorry. I think you said it all. There's nothing else to really say. I think that's we just need to continue to uplift each other.
Yes.
One way or the other. I think that's what you're saying in a nutshell. Continue to uplift and love on each other.
And keep the change.
One way or the other. Because I don't want to hear people walking around clank, 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 clank.
Keep the change. Keep it all. We have so much change in this house. And Maurice said, well, babe, there's a shortage on change. You think we should take it back to the bank? And I said, no.
Yeah. So,
we're keeping the change. We have a huge, I mean,
it's not huge. It's where I've heard some people to have, but it's enough. How many times did you use cash and then you just throw the change around? So, one thing I will say, I didn't have enough quarters to put air in my tire today. So
there's plenty of quarters in there.
I know. It's plenty of quarters in the house, but I didn't have any quarters in my car.
Oh, well, that was your fault. You should have went into the change bin and got it, because we have plenty of change.
But yeah, continue to uplift each other, continue to laugh with each other, and because we need it.
We do.
And let's make sure that as we go into this next season, whatever that is, let's be as hopeful and as prayerful and as positive as we can.
Amen, Pastor. That's the way you do it. If y'all can see Maurice's face, oh goodness, bless his heart.
What?
Oh,
you know
goodness.
what? So that we're going to segue right on out with that. But I just want y'all to know that continue to listen to us, because we're going to have some updates coming in December leading into January about where No Fruit Podcast is going.
Amen.
So maybe you'll be able to see my face literally.
Oh, my.
We will keep you posted.
We'll keep you posted. So as the holidays are coming, we hope that you reach out to one another, family members. Right. If you can't see them, please call them because it's just a rough time right now. Right. Also, remember to listen to us on Facebook. No, you don't listen to us on Facebook, but make sure that you connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Stay fit with us each and every single day.
Right.
Look out for our motivational words each week.
Right.
And also, there's something that you can do with the holiday coming up, and you're just not quite sure what kind of gift to give to someone. Give the gift of No Fruit t-shirts or sweatshirts. You can find them on Amazon. And where else, Maurice?
Positive Energy Shop. PositiveNRGShop.com.
That's right. Check us out and support this podcast. And we will continue to love you and thank you as we thank God for this time that we have with you.
Thank y'all very much, y'all. And we will talk to y'all later.
Love you all. Peace.
This week's episode has come to an end. But the fun doesn't have to stop here. If you have any questions, suggestions, or feedback, head over right now to Twitter and Facebook and like, share, and get involved. Join us next time.
Don't forget that your skin is your largest organ, and the sun can be your skin's worst enemy. Dermatologist recommended Neutrogena products offer the ultimate protection for your skin. From makeup remover wipes to Hydro Boost Water Gel Facial Moisturizer, BJ's has your entire lineup of Neutrogena skincare products. And now through December 3rd, save $4 on any Neutrogena product at BJ's. Love your skin back and save now through December 3rd, only at BJ's.
We all know a guy who only occasionally shaves for big occasions, and it's because that occasional shave really hurts. It's the time of year for big occasions, and yet there he is, suffering with that cheap drugstore razor. Let's help him out. Henson Shaving's line of razors, built with aerospace precision, deliver a smooth shave your dad, brother, and even son can enjoy, eventually. With replacement blades just 10 cents each, you'll buy it once, and they'll use it for life. How's that for the perfect gift? Celebrate with 100 free blades on your first purchase, and no subscription headaches. HensonShaving.com/holiday.